These clothes aren't mine. Oh. Hello. My name is Edgar Allan Poe. Allan with an A. Nobody gets that right. I was born on January 19th, 1809. My parents were traveling actors, which is probably where I get my flair for the dramatic. By the time I was 3, they both died of tuberculosis. It's a nasty disease. You cough up blood and such. Disgusting. At age 3, I was adopted by a nice family, John Allan with an A, and his wife Frances, and they took me to Richmond, Virginia. I lived an okay childhood, and then when I was old enough, I got engaged to a nice girl. Elmira. Elmira. Oh, Elmira. Then I went off like any, strapping young lad, and I went off to the University of Virginia. Yes, my father was so proud. But then my mother, Frances, died. Long, painful disease. After that, my father, John Allan with an A, decided to have a strange relationship. I don't know what that was about. I think it might have been because he sent me with less than a third of the funds that I needed to go to college or something like that. And so, of course, there's nothing else I could have done except for I started to gamble a bit. Just a little to pay my expenses at the University of Virginia. Of course, my father, John Allan, did not like that, of course. But again, it is his fault. So, after the first semester, I ended up burning my furniture to keep warm. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? After a while, I dropped out of school and I moved back to Richmond. And then, I found out Elmira was two-timing me. She was engaged to another man, even though we had been engaged, but, So, of course, I started writing. I thought, hey, why not? I published my first book at age 18. It was not popular. I enlisted in the army after that. 2 years later, I entered the United States Military Academy at West Point. I thought, John Allan's gonna love this, right? But, except for, he actually had fathered illegitimate twins and married a woman, get this, 20 years his junior. 20 years! She could have been my sister, and he didn't even bother to tell me, his adopted son. Well, I wasn't even invited to the wedding. It's fine. Well, I decided to go ahead and leave West Point, because obviously nothing I could have done was going to make John Allan proud of me. And here's the problem. It required John Allan's permission for me to withdraw. So I decided, hey, if he's not going to get permission for me, if he's not going to give it, then I'm just going to get myself kicked out. Oh, and I did some things. To try to get kicked out of West Point. I really did. That was a good time in my life. Well, 8 months go by, and I was kicked out for negligence and disorderly conduct. Yeah, there's a rumor going around that I showed up for drills in a belt and a smile. Yeah. Well, after that, John Allan said he had enough of me. He was done. And so I moved to Baltimore, where all the fun is. And, of course, I didn't have anywhere to go. So I stayed with a cousin, but the dude robbed me. I have had a rough life so far, y'all. And so, of course, I had an aunt in Baltimore. Her name was Maria Clem, and she was like a mom to me. I mean, my mothers had both departed, and she became my new mother, and it was wonderful. And she had a daughter, Virginia. Now, okay, I realize that Virginia, yes, since Maria's my aunt, Virginia is my cousin. Okay, sure. But man, Virginia, she was young when I first met her, and I used to actually make her send letters to women for me, like, hey, I like you. So she would take my letters to those pretty ladies. But eventually, you know, she became the ugly duckling that turned into a swan. You know what I mean? And so Virginia, ooh, yeah, she was good. And so we got married. She was 14, I was 27. Age just a number, right? And meanwhile, my father died. Yeah, and he didn't leave anything for me in his will. Nothing. Surprise, right? However, he did leave in his will, you know, an illegitimate child. Apparently he got around. Anyway, so my life being what it was so far, I decided, hey, I'm gonna go back to writing, right? Writing, hey. So I started publishing stories in magazines. I even won a writing contest or two, you know, no big deal. It really started taking off, though, around 1845 when I wrote that Raven story. They loved that Raven. I don't know why. They love birds, maybe? I don't know. But man, I really started getting a name for myself. However, things kind of took a downhill turn when Virginia, at age 24, died of tuberculosis. Tuberculosis. Nasty disease. Well, I kind of started plummeting after that. Depression really set in, and I started writing some really dark stuff. I mean, super dark stuff. And ooh, I mean, people loved that, though. They really liked that deep, dark, macabre stuff. And so my career really took off after that, I guess. And so I returned to Richmond about 1849. And actually, guess who I bumped into there? Elmira, my first fiance. Wow. She was actually a widow then, and we actually hit it off for the second time. Go figure. Anyway, so we were engaged, and I decided to go down to Philadelphia. And the train situation, you had to stop in Baltimore, and I don't know what happened, but I disappeared for 5 days. Right? As one does. 5 days, don't know, right? And I was found in a bar room of a public house. You know, it's kind of like a bar sort of thing. And, oh yeah, and it was being used for like a polling place for an election at the time, but you know. And I was wearing clothes that definitely were not mine. And I was shouting a strange name or something, and something like Reynolds, yeah. I was out of it, like having hallucinations, dry mouth, real weird. And my last words were, Lord help my poor soul. Lord help my poor soul. Anyway, I died on October 7th, 1849 at the age of 40. Pretty young. But hey, everybody remembers my name, right? Hey. Most figured I died of alcohol poisoning because, you know, the depression and the alcoholism. But I don't think so. There are some theories that people really have gone after about my death, and I'm going to tell you a few of them. One of my favorite theories about my death is rabies. Rabies, yeah. There was this guy, his name was Benitez or something like that. He was given the case, my case, and he was only given that this was a writer from Richmond. So they gave him a case, and they said this was a writer from Richmond, cold case, right? And they said, all right, I want you to solve the case. So they gave him all my symptoms, dry mouth, raving, hallucinations, and he said, yeah, that's classic rabies. I don't know. That's a good one. Another theory is that it was polling fraud. This is also called cooping back in the day, right? And so people would go and they would grab people off the street, okay? And they would dress them up as different people to go vote. They would get them drunk and they would get them, just completely out of it, knock their heads like boom, 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 yeah. And they'd take them to polling places and vote as different people. So that would explain the different clothing and the fact that I was yelling somebody's name. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good theory. I like that theory. Another one was that I had diabetes or like hypoglycemia. I needed a Snickers bar, I guess. I don't know. I'm not buying it. There's another theory, carbon monoxide poisoning, ? It was kind of a deal during the day. Was I murdered? Who knows? Who was Reynolds? I don't know. Ooh, a good theory. I like this theory is brain tumor. So I was originally buried in an unmarked grave in Baltimore. But then, 26 years later, okay, I was reburied because, I got famous or whatever. They do that. And then, as I was being reburied, as they were taking my coffin around, something was rolling around in my noggin, okay? And they thought what happened was that it was a calcified tumor. Ooh, I like it. Another theory is that it was just a plain old flu. Because, here's the thing, before I left Richmond to go to Philadelphia, I had been sick. My fiancée, Elmira, right, she had said that I had a weak pulse and a fever, and she advised me, she said, oh, Edgar, don't leave, Edgar, you're sick, Edgar, and I was like, I gotta go, woman, and yeah, so, those are the theories. What do you think? So, now, I think it's only fitting that I read you one of my most famous works. What do you think? Shall it be The Raven? Shall it be The Cask of Amontillado? Ooh, good stuff. My favorite, though, is The Telltale Heart. I wrote this one when I was really down and out and feeling guilty about a few things, So I think I'll choose this one. Here we go. The Telltale Heart by me, Edgar Allan Poe. True. Nervous, dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? Hearken and observe how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me, day and night. Object, there was none. I loved the old man. For his gold, I had no desire. I think it was his eye. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so I made up my mind to take the life of this old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded. I was never kinder to the old man than during the week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and I opened it, oh, so gently. I put a dark lantern so that no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. And I moved it slowly, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously so that a single ray fell upon the vulture eye. This I did for 7 long nights. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves no more slowly than did mine. When I had waited a long time very patiently, I resolved to open a very little crevice in the lantern until, at length, a single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot out and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open. Wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. A dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. Now there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum simulates the soldier into courage. A new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, "Rah!" I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and put the heavy bed over him. But for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. At length, it ceased. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. The old man was dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. First, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. Next, I took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. It was 4 o'clock, still dark at midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I to fear? There entered 3 men, officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused, and the officers had been deputed to search the premises. I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house and bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them to rest from their fatigue, while I myself placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. I fancied a ringing in my ears. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. I talked more fluently when with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased. It was a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I paced the floor, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God! What could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore, but the noise rose over all. It grew louder, and louder. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no. They heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. I felt that I must scream or die, and now again, hark, louder! Villains! I shrieked, dissemble no more! I admit the deed! Tear up the planks! Here is the beating of his hideous heart! Yeah. Any questions?